Hi everybody, this is Dino from Prehistoric Facts. Sorry I actually got this video in late due to things that I couldn't control. Basically, just my schedule got really busy, and it was kind of hard for me to actually get the episode done on Saturday or Sunday. So basically, I actually decided to actually get this episode done on this kind of particular Monday, and so now I feel a little bit more stress-free. So basically, I'll actually get to do this episode right now. And so this is actually a special episode, and we'll actually be talking about a couple prehistoric animals, and one of them is actually one of my favorite prehistoric sea monsters, and the other one is actually a pretty decent kind of sauropod. And so let's actually start with a really cool looking sea monster, I actually have to say. And so let's actually get right to it. So basically the first animal we'll be talking about is Dunkleosteous. Now, Dunkleosteous, meaning in Greek or Latin, means Dunkel's bone, and pretty much lived in the oceans around the Devonian period. 380 to 360 million years ago. About 30 feet long, or probably would have weighed between 3 to 4 tons. And basically, it's a carnivore, so basically no surprise there. And with Dunkleosteous, it's actually part of the group of fishes called placoderms, and not to be confused with pachyderms, because pachyderms are actually thick-skinned mammals, basically. Placoderms are armored fish, and so Dunkleosteous is part of that family, and part of that family of armored fish. This Dunkleosteous is considered to be one of the largest, or at least the largest placoderm that has ever existed so far. And of course, being a carnivore, it's the most unique fossil of Dunkleosteous is its armored plated head. And so the rest of the body has not really have been found, but even though it's actually probably suggested it probably had more like a cartilage, like a skeleton, kind of like sharks do today. So basically, Dunkleosteous and the placoderms are pretty much kind of close relatives to sharks and rays, basically, because they probably had cartilage for a skeleton, not really bone, and so the only bony part of a placoderm is their armor, and so that's actually a unique feature of the placoderms. And so with Dunkleosteous, with the armor-plated head, basically as I've seen the Dunkleosteous armor plating myself. Basically, in pretty much a replica, but I've seen it in the Field Museum, and I think I've seen it in the Science Museum in Minnesota. And basically, if you go to any museum that actually has like a prehistoric type of exhibit, basically shows the history of life on Earth, you would actually find one of these. It's a very iconic fossil, and so it's actually pretty cool to actually get to see. And of course, with Dunkleosteous, it's actually a predator, so basically it actually will be eating other animals in the oceans. And so, with Dunkleosteous, being the size that it is, it probably was a very slow-moving type of fish. It probably didn't actually have a very good speed. I think the large placoderms didn't really have very great speed. So basically, they would have probably been slow-moving, but even though the carnivorous ones had very quick and powerful jaws. And that's what Dunkleosteous brings to the table. And basically, it has one of the strongest bite forces in the animal kingdom in all of life on Earth. But even though it's not as strong as Megalodon or Tyrannosaurus Rex, it can get close to Tyrannosaurus Rex. What is the estimated bite force of Dunkleosteous is pretty close to 8,000 pounds. And so that's pretty powerful. And its jaws are not, and basically its jaws act like a scissors type of motion, basically. So they kind of actually act like scissors. And basically with the jaws, there's no teeth. There's no teeth for Dunkleosteous. It's basically, the jaw is just kind of designed to actually kind of like be like a paper cutter, basically. Or basically, it actually has this very thin extensions, basically, of the jawbone. And it actually makes like that scissoring like action to cut flesh. And that is what it actually brings. Could slice through bone if it had to, if it actually fed on prey that has like a much more bony skeleton. But even though its prey would have actually been like invertebrates, some medium-sized fish, and some of the very first sharks that actually have lived, and I think pretty much it could probably actually eat its own kind, considering that it actually would actually be a cannibal. And so wouldn't surprise me that they did actually eat each other on occasion to control their population, basically. And so Dunkleosteous living in the Devonian, that would be called the Age of Fishes. So it's because there's a wide variety of fish that have lived in the Devonian, and so a very large population, very large diversity of fish. You know, you got your lobe-finned fish, you got your placoderms, you got your sharks, and your actual fish that you kind of see, kind of like today, where basically you don't see like the lobe fins that much, but even though you actually kind of see kind of like what we think of fish. And so with Dunkleosteous, could actually be, it's basically one of the last placoderms. Placoderms didn't live very long in the geologic time period in the Devonian, because basically they didn't really have a very good survival strategy. But also they were very primitive type of fish though too. So they actually kind of went, because basically placoderms live for 50 million years. That's it. 50 million years, that's it. And so pretty much they were around for a very short period of time in the geologic time period, in the time scale and all that sorts of stuff. So in the Devonian, they actually just lived fast, but they died young. So basically that's how I kind of look at it. And so pretty much Dunkleosteous pretty much actually suffered the same fate like it had in the Devonian Extinction. The Devonian Extinction actually happened in the middle of the Devonian. It didn't really happen at the end. So it actually happened right in the middle of the Devonian. So pretty much Dunkleosteous probably witnessed the Devonian Extinction. And so and if anybody's seen Animal Armageddon, Animal Planet's Animal Armageddon, it actually does talk about the Devonian Extinction. It actually happened around 136 million, or excuse me, I can't see 100, 360 million years ago, and pretty much they believe it might have been like a huge volcanic eruption, probably like a super volcano that actually erupted and basically caused huge changes in the environment, and then pretty much just basically a lot of the primitive animals just couldn't survive that much longer to actually get past the extinction. And so right at the end of the Devonian is when we actually start to see like the very first amphibians, and the lobe-fin fish have still been around, but basically they're almost in decline. And so, but with the Devonian, the placoderms were gone. They were pretty much gone at the end of the Devonian. So pretty much they all disappeared. And so all you had left to actually fill up the niche of the predatory niche that actually needed to be filled, the sharks actually took over. And that's basically when the sharks were pretty much called top predators of the ocean, and that kind of gave the way for that. And so Dunkleosteous, as being one of my favorite prehistoric sea monsters, is pretty cool to actually get to talk about this kind of particular animal, because I've loved this prehistoric animal for a long time, and I've always wanted to see if it actually has some pretty cool features, especially the eyes. The eyes are actually armored, and that's pretty cool to see. And pretty much looking at Dunkleosteous, it's pretty much like one of the scariest, probably one of the scariest fossils I've ever seen. But even though luckily it's dead, so basically we don't get to see it. So that's all. And now next we're actually going to talk about a sauropod called Jobaria. And Jobaria is named after an African mythical creature called Jobar. And it actually is found in northern Africa. Lived in the early Cretaceous 135 million years ago. About 60 feet long, probably would have weighed between 15 to 20 tons. So this is not a very large sauropod. It's not considered a large sauropod. This is actually considered to be like a medium-sized sauropod. And of course, with all sauropods, it actually is a herbivore, eating plants. And Jobaria is it's one of the lesser known sauropods, but even though from looking at illustrations, it has a very short neck and also has kind of a short tail, and but basically it has its front legs and its back legs are nearly the same length, which is kind of actually surprising to me, because most sauropods either have basically either the same length in terms of front legs and back legs, or otherwise their front legs are a little bit shorter than their back legs, or otherwise their front legs are longer than their back legs, kind of like Brachiosaurus. But with Jobaria, it's basically got the same, amount of, pretty much the same length or measurements for their front and back legs, so pretty much they're same level. Now, I would think with Jobaria being that it's pretty much a medium-sized sauropod, probably actually ate plants that were pretty much that were not really high up in not high up in the trees. So pretty much they weren't actually going after anything that were in the trees. They could probably actually eat anything that was probably from a smaller tree to lower shrubs, maybe some ferns. And so that would actually be probably what Jobaria actually probably would have ate. The environment it probably lived in was pretty much like mostly in terms of the dinosaurs. It was a very warm and humid climate. It probably lived near wetlands. Probably actually lived in the floodplains. But even though it's such a rare dinosaur, maybe it might actually lived more further inland than probably in any other sauropod, considering that most sauropods tend to actually stick pretty close to the floodplain, especially the large ones. Large ones tend to stick pretty close to the floodplain. And so Jobaria might actually be one of those sauropods where maybe it lived further inland and we don't actually find a lot of their fossils. So pretty much it's actually a very rare type of dinosaur. And also it actually lived in a time where basically not a lot of dinosaur fossils have been found a lot, considering that 135 million years ago, it's kind of actually kind of like a spot in the geologic time where there's not a lot of fossils. But even though we do find fossils of dinosaurs, it's just that they're probably a little bit smaller than their actual Jurassic predecessors, and so pretty much dinosaurs are kind of like regrouping and actually kind of revamping their size. So pretty much, but this is when sauropods were actually in decline. So they were actually almost on their way out. But even though that was when the titanosaurs were actually kind of being a little bit more common, but they didn't really become common until like 125 million years ago. So it's actually kind of that kind of situation. And of course, Jobaria with extinction, it actually probably was just basically climate change, just basically, and with the continents drifting further apart, and also that northern Africa was pretty much starting to see where the sea levels are starting to rise a little bit, but even though not quite as high until like 90 million years ago. And that actually kind of sets the tone of basically of that the oceans were actually spreading like crazy, and that is just because that there was no ice caps during the time of the dinosaurs. Antarctica didn't have ice. Even the North Pole didn't have ice. So pretty much, you actually are living in a very warm tropical environment. But even though but Jobaria where it lived probably lived further inland, so probably actually lived in areas where it was a little bit drier, and so maybe it just couldn't compete with the newer animals that actually had the ability to adapt to tougher environments, and so maybe it actually couldn't actually survive the new changes in the environments. Alright, that's it for now. Now Friday I'll actually be doing an extra episode about dinosaur record holders. So this is actually kind of a new topic, and I think I would like to actually get a chance to actually talk about dinosaurs that actually hold some records that actually that are standing right now, and that could possibly never be broken, or otherwise possibly be broken at some point. And so that will actually be pretty cool to actually do, and hopefully you guys would like that episode as well. And also Saturday there will be a new answering questions episode. So if you got a question about dinosaurs or any other prehistoric life, feel free to email me at dinocris71@gmail.com, or otherwise go on my Facebook page, Prehistoric Facts with Dino Chris. Like the page, you can actually post your questions in the comment section on any Facebook post. But remember, keep your questions short and to the point. Don't use the messenger because I can't read the questions properly that way. And also, you can follow me on Twitter at CSGRALL. That's my Twitter page. I post pretty cool stuff on there. And also, take care of the people around you. And also, for younger people out there, make sure to listen to your parents, your teachers, and your guardians. Those are the best motivation you can have for good education. It's very important to have good education. With a good education, you get a good job in the future. And as you can tell, I'm wearing a Velociraptor t-shirt. I haven't worn this t-shirt in a while. So basically, kind of pretty cool to actually wear a prehistoric animal on a shirt. So basically, pretty cool though. Alright, that's it for now, and I'll see you guys next week. Or this Saturday, excuse me.